All right, so Jeremy Grantham said the market bubble will burst in the next couple of weeks or months. I haven't read the article. We'll read it together. Jeremy Grantham, the perma-bear, the big the guy who thinks we're all going to die under a pit of global warming and climate change. I guarantee Jeremy Grantham takes a private jet, though. Guarantee. All right, so let's take a look here. Jeremy Grantham, big lib, big climate change guy, fearmonger. Just embarrassed for these people that they say we're all going to die from a pit of global warming and climate change as they're flying all around the world in their private jets. Jeremy Grantham, the market bubble will burst in weeks or months. Jeremy Grantham has made a science of studying asset bubbles, correctly predicting the path of the Japanese .com and housing overvaluations. Did he? Today's because he's been talking about the U.S. bear market for years, all right? Today's bubble in equities is unlike any other, he says, but it'll burst in weeks if not months, or months if not weeks. He's the founder of a Boston-based firm, GMO. They manage billions of dollars, man, and all given to left-wing people. I tell you, this is why the idea of the investment industry is right-wing is nuts. They're not. He was interviewed via webinar by a guy who's a co-investment officer at Evoke Wealth and Eris Consulting. We're in a bubble, says Grantham, but it's unlike any other. The excessive bubbles of history took an economic situation and extrapolated that in the future, based on an assumption that today's perfect conditions will continue. But doing that today leads to the opposite of a bubble. He said, given the PE ratios at the highest 15% of historical values despite the dismal economy. Everything is overpriced, he said, but there's no way to say when they'll peak. To call that peak is it is useful to look for signs of crazy behavior. That was not lacking the rally off the COVID low. That was a late-stage rally with rapid surge in prices. Another sign of craziness is the flood of interest in special purpose acquisition companies, which are based on the proposition to give me your money and trust and I'll do something useful with it. Well, I don't even know what special purpose acquisition companies are. So is there craziness among regular investors? Not that I'm aware of. That is a true testimonial to the speculative nature of the market. See, this is the problem with guys like Jeremy Grantham. They're so in their bubble, they don't know what regular people are going through. And believe it or not, regular people still control a lot of assets. Now, me specifically, no, but me and you and Pablo and that guy over there, and to combine in our 401ks and our TSPs and our IRAs, we control a boatload of money, man. That's a fact. And so the idea that we want special purpose acquisition, I don't even know what those things are. SPACs? Yeah, SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies. Let's see. The real testimony is the speculative nature of the market. He added that the same is true of the valuations of Hertz and Tesla, the latter of which he called the great company, but unjustifiable at today's stock price. The stories are everywhere and what you need for a bubble, and the stories are everywhere and are what you need for a bubble to break. But he said there is an indicator that, but does not offer certainty that we are close to the break. It could be weeks or months. Okay, well, weeks or months is pretty close to the break. You cannot be as certain as in prior bubbles. Those bubbles were due for near certain collapse. My bet is that reality will catch up with the high PEs. According to Grantham, a high PE is intrinsically dangerous and risky situation that relies on investor confidence. If you break the confidence or way overpriced, you are looking at substantial declines. He runs a family foundation that's focused on green energy investments, where much of his time, energy, and passion is focused. But he studies the market intensely. The interview is focused on climate change in the capital markets. Rising sea levels present existential threat to the percentage of the global population. Rising sea levels present an existential threat to a large percentage of the global population. Over the next century, he predicted that countries in Africa will be destabilized, the big chunks of the Indian subcontinent will be devastated. We'll go from 1.5% of the planet being uninhabitable to 17%, mostly near the equator. 2 billion people, primarily in Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, will lose their homes. 5 out of the 9 million people on Earth will be threatened, he said. That will lead to immigration and pressure on Europe. Why will they get hit with sea level rises? And will become a big geopolitical risk and real threat to the well-being of society. These guys are freaking nuts, man. But humans are completely capable of handling it. Yet in real life, we don't behave well because we fly around private jets. Come here, Uppy. Come on. Good boy. All right, there we go. Those who understand and accept the threat of climate change need to do everything in their power to use their influence through political media advocacy. You can never do too much. I guarantee. I bet Jeremy Grantham is donating to the ICL, the Imperial College of London. We'll find out. Put that on the side real quick. In 2007, he wrote a paper about climate change. Since then, it was clear to him that we'd be trouble for oil stocks. Oil has gone from 25% of the market capitalization of the S&P 500 in 1982 to 2.5%, which he said was the biggest loss in value in the history of the major groups in the index. He acknowledged they could never predict when that collapse happened. So he wrote that in 2007, but in 1982, so he's saying, look, I said this in 2007. Well, in 1982, oil was 25% of market capitalization. Now it's 2.5%. All right. Well, he wrote in 1987, which is 25 years after it started going down. I mean, does that mean oil stocks are actually, literally think about it. Does that mean oil stocks are actually lost leaders? Actually lost? Or does it mean other things capitulated above it? This whole thing, these guys are freaking idiots, man. I'm sorry. So oil used to be 25% of the S&P 500. A rising tide lifts all boats. So the S&P 500 rises. Oil still rising, but it's rising at a decelerating pace relative to the other things that are taking over it. Financial companies, particularly because of things of the free market capitalistic, we thought, mentality of the Wall Street. But we've gone from Main Street to Wall Street, and as such, finance companies that particularly have dominated the S&P 500. And technological companies, too, as technology has exploded. It's not a bad thing, man. Not a bad thing at all. It's not as if oil stocks have just lost value since 1982. It's just freaking stupid, man. You were on the wrong side of history if you owned oil. Is that true? He called that a great demonstration of the long-term slow burn of an industry. That's what the rest of climate change looks like now. We will win. The question is whether the world will still be living in. He said he has been dragged into politics. Democratic administration will embrace deficit as well as green spending, which he said would be great. Well, why, Jeremy, you freaking do all the green spending, man. Why do you need my tax dollars to spend? You got billions of dollars. That'll give a shock to the economic system that'll drive us out of the dreary, slow growth rates of the last 2 decades. The developed world had been losing its growth and edge. Okay, so he's a big fan of venture capital, especially investments in green technology. I guarantee he's contributing big time to World Economic Forum. Green venture capital have had very high return in areas like wind, solar, and electric cars. All right. Central banks, the Fed, I guarantee he's big on masks and everything too. I guarantee it. All right, so I'm sick of this guy. So do not let conservative politicians and some economists persuade you that debt is a bone crusher. It is not. Okay, so he said, I've been dragged into politics. I didn't want to, but they needed me. They needed me. Bill Gates and all these other rich guys. Do not let conservative politicians and some economists persuade you that debt is a bone crusher. He is not intimidated by leverage, only by interest cost coverage. The entire corporate system is in pretty good shape. Okay. Bring on the left-wing Democrats. Let's make sure it's done right. I don't mind a little inflation. It doesn't threaten the economy. It threatens PEs. No, it threatens bonds and a little bit of inflation. So he's a big lefty. Fiscal spending can reasonably lead to inflation. All right. He's recommended avoiding U.S. equities in favor of emerging markets. Okay, so he just he doesn't like. I don't care. So let's take a look at. Let's take a look at Grantham. Hold on just a second. So he says the man who called the 2008 financial crisis. Many people call the 2008 financial crisis because he's been bear the whole time. A broke clock is right twice a day. I said the stock market will break a lot of hearts in the next 20 years. That's what he said in 2019. Okay, let's keep going down here. In January of 2018, what did Jeremy Grantham say? Stocks could be heading for a melt up. Grantham's long known for his bearish views that the market's next move could take stocks higher, dramatically higher. Well, what happened in 2018? The stocks fell. In 2019, they went up. And we just talked about how he said in 2019 that he says it could be ugly. So let's keep the GMO 7-year asset class real return focused forecast. And starting in July of 2018, U.S. large cap stocks, they predicted an annual rate of return of negative 4.9%. U.S. high quality small caps negative 2.3%. Emerging markets 2.7% on the positive. So he said we would lose 4.9% on average in 2018 for the next 7 years, which obviously has not happened. Could. Emerging debt would, so look at this. You got emerging markets and emerging debt are the only asset class other than cash to net next positive returns for the next 7 years as in 2018. Ironically enough, he said in 2018, I just showed you, that the market was going to melt up. So what's going on here? GMO is notoriously extreme about their predictions because they spend a lot of time on dissecting historical market bubbles. And here's 2010 asset class. On the other hand, there are 7-year asset class forecasts from 2010. U.S. equities, large cap would average real 0.4%. Small caps, negative 1.9. International equities, negative 1.4. Emerging markets, 4.1. And U.S. high quality, whatever that is, an average of 4.9. All right, so these guys are just fools. I mean, look at that. That's their 7-year asset class forecast in 2010. And here are the actual results. Let's go. Large cap, 12.2. That's a set out of inflation. And this guy says, I left out high quality because I'm not really sure how they define that. And managed timber seems to have dropped off the new projections. Do they got managed timber on here? Yeah, managed timber 5.0 or 6.0. Isn't that funny? Because managed timber is what they were doing at the Yale. David Swenson, Yale model. Everyone's like, managed timber. So it's just funny how these guys are all fake, man. Look at that. So everything he said, he predicted emerging equities emerging. Let's see, emerging markets, what did they do? They did 0.5 and they predicted 4.1. International equities, small cap, 7.7, they predicted negative 1.4. U.S. equity, small cap, they predicted negative 1.9 and they did 11.8. These guys are just foolish, man. I don't want to keep beating this drum. Oh, let's hold on a second. The Imperial College of London, where the world infamous Neil Ferguson laid his claim to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people with his insanity of saying there's going to be 3.4% death rate because of COVID-19. Nuts. And the shutdowns and 2 million people, and I think it was the UK, I can't remember. So here's the Imperial College of London. They're sustainable imperial. We are committed to making our campuses as sustainable as possible. Do you have a suggestion for a sustainability team? Look, we got recycle. We got, where's the wins right there? Where's the PV? We got any PV on here? We can't tell, but so check it out. Who is one of these? Let's take a look, shall we? Who's one of their contributors? Oh, the Grantham Institute, huh? Who's the Grantham Institute? Let's take a gander. You want to guess who this is? The Grantham Institute. Do you really need to know who is the Grantham Institute? Climate change, meet our affiliates, explore a Grantham, and this Al Gore is one big fraud. Meet our affiliates, explore our Grantham affiliates directory, find an Imperial staff associated with the Institute who are driving forward in climate change and the environment. Look, they got Al Gore. You don't want to be against the environment, do you? These are all freaking frauds, man. Imperial College at London, the Grantham Foundation for the Protection of the Environment. Let's take a gander. All right. The Grantham Foundation seeks to raise awareness of urgent environmental causes and individuals working to find solutions. Our grant-making support. We believe that climate change represents the world's primary environmental threat today, and mitigating and adapting to changing climate will lead to a more sustainable purpose and future. The Grantham Foundation, we already talked about that, there he is, old Jeremy. His foundation, the Protection of the Environment, was founded in 1997 by Jeremy and Hannah Lore, who's GMO. Jeremy is the co-founder of GMO LLC, investment management firm, both actively involved in setting the strategic direction of the planet. These guys are all fake, dude. All fake. I just want to know, does Jeremy Grantham never ever get on an airplane? I guarantee he has a private airplane. It's all fake. Just like when what's his name, Mackenzie Bezos, when she's saying she's going to give billions of dollars of her money that she got from Jeff when they divorced, because Jeff Bezos, I don't know, who knows, he let her hanging, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all these people. I read the thing. She did this thing on Medium, actually, and all these people were begging, like, hey, whatever, Mackenzie Bezos, I got, I do climate change. You should fund me. I do Black Lives Matter. You should fund me. All these people are just out for a quick buck, and they go after rich people who are the rich people who have no faith in anything supernatural. They believe in nothing else but the state of the earth. They think this is all I got. This is it, and it's just sad. But they're, a fool and his money will always part. Well, Jeremy Grantham's a fool. It's just all there is to it. Yet, unfortunately, he's a rich fool. And rich fools can take a lot of us out with him, for sure, because he's got a lot of money to get a lot of politicians bought and sold who will do his bidding. It's bad stuff. All right, we'll see you.